Level 1, the candidate. You arrive at Camp McCall, North Carolina, before sunrise, and the first thing they take from you is certainty. This is Special Forces Assessment and Selection, SFAS. 24 days that exist to find out who you are when nobody's watching and nobody's helping. You ruck 12 miles with a pack that never weighs the right amount, and then you do it again the next day, and the day after that, and you're never told your pace, your standing, or how much longer it goes. Cadre with clipboards watch you fail, and they write down how you fail, because how you handle failure is the entire point of the test. Half the class rings the bell before day 10. An Army Research Institute study on SOF selection found that psychological resilience under sustained ambiguity, not raw physical fitness, is the strongest single predictor of who makes it through. Nobody is screaming at you here, which is somehow worse than basic training ever was. Silence and ambiguity break people that yelling never could. You don't know if you passed. Nobody tells you until it's over. When they finally read your name off the selection list, you feel nothing you expected to feel, just a hollow, exhausted relief, and a strange grief for the guys who didn't hear their names read at all. Level 2, the student. You've made it into the Special Forces Qualification Course, the Q course, at the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center at Fort Liberty. This is a year, sometimes closer to 2, of small unit tactics, language training, and a specialty track, weapons, engineering, medical, or communications. The 18 Series Medic course alone runs nearly a year and produces some of the most capable trauma providers in the entire military, a fact documented repeatedly in the Journal of Special Operations Medicine, where SF medics routinely outperform civilian paramedics on trauma outcome studies. The course ends with Robin Sage, a 2-week unconventional warfare exercise where you live in the woods of North Carolina, training a simulated guerrilla force, sleeping in barns, eating what you're given, executing missions with no real sleep schedule. At the end, they pin the Special Forces tab on your shoulder. You are a Green Beret. It took you 3 years to get here from the day you first raised your hand, and your family drives down for the ceremony not fully understanding what the green wool actually means. Only that you're different now, standing straighter, saying less. Level 3, the junior operator. You're on an Operational Detachment Alpha now, an ODA, 12 men who train, deploy, and depend on each other completely. You are the newest 18 Series specialist on the team, and everyone above you has more deployments than you have years in, more scars than stories, and more stories than they'll ever tell you. You train partner forces in countries most Americans couldn't find on a map. You learn that the job is rarely direct combat and mostly relationship building, patience, and teaching a foreign soldier to do something you already know how to do in a language you're still learning, over tea, in a room where the wrong word could cost the entire relationship. The team doesn't fully trust you yet. Trust on an ODA isn't given. It's earned over training cycles and deployments, the same way the tab was, and you learn to stay quiet in meetings until you've actually earned the right to speak in them. Level 4, the team sergeant, E7 or E8, and you now run the ODA to day. The captain commands it on paper, you make it function in reality. You plan the training calendar, manage 12 strong personalities, and translate the mission into something 12 exhausted men can execute at 3 a.m. in unfamiliar terrain, with equipment that isn't always the equipment you were promised. ARAND Corporation report on Special Operations Retention found, Team sergeants cite family strain from deployment tempo as the single largest factor in whether they stay past 20 years. You know that tempo personally. You've missed birthdays, you can still list from memory, and anniversaries you remember mostly through the guilt of missing them rather than the dates themselves. Level 5, the Warrant Officer. This rank barely exists outside Special Forces, and that's exactly what makes it fascinating. As a 100 AA Assistant Detachment Commander, you're a technical and tactical expert who never stops being an operator, unlike most military career tracks that pull you into pure administration as you rise. You mentor young captains who technically outrank you but lean on your 15 years of team experience for every real decision, the kind of decisions that don't survive contact with the classroom. You are proof that in Special Forces, expertise sometimes outweighs rank, quietly and by design, and you spend your whole tenure making sure the young captains never realize how much they're actually leaning on you, because saying it out loud would only make it harder for them to lead. Level 6, the Detachment Commander. Captain, commanding the same 12-man ODA. A team sergeant twice your experience actually runs day to day. The dynamic is delicate. A good captain listens before ordering. A bad one gets people hurt, or, worse, gets people killed for nothing, and the team never forgets which kind you were. You write the operations orders. You brief battalion. You carry legal responsibility for every decision the team makes downrange. Decisions your team sergeant often saw coming 3 moves before you did. And the smartest captains learn to ask before they order, not after. Level 7, the Sergeant Major, battalion level now, senior enlisted advisor across several ODAs and support elements. Every personal crisis in the battalion eventually reaches your office. A marriage falling apart, a soldier failing a random urinalysis, a detachment commander who needs to be told, respectfully, that his plan is going to get someone killed. Your body carries 2 decades of jumps, dive coals, and ruck marches. Your knees popped their last cartilage years ago, and the flight surgeon stopped pretending surgery would fix it. You don't complain, because complaining was never part of the culture that got you here. So you keep taking the ibuprofen and keep showing up before everyone else does. Level 8, the Battalion Commander. Lieutenant Colonel, commanding several ODAs and the support companies that keep them supplied, funded, and equipped. You spent 20 years being selected for things. Selection itself, promotion boards, command boards, language proficiency boards, and every board eliminated peers as talented as you who simply fell on the wrong side of timing. You manage relationships with foreign governments, embassy country teams, and conventional force commanders who don't always understand what unconventional warfare actually requires, or why your teams operate by a different set of rules than everyone else on the base. Level 9, the Group Commander, Colonel, commanding an entire Special Forces group. Several thousand soldiers spread across multiple continents at any given moment. You brief general officers at U.S. Army Special Operations Command about missions most of the country will never read about in a newspaper, filed under names that mean nothing to anyone outside a small classified circle. You sign off on deployments knowing some of your operators, the ones you once led as a young captain, may not return from a mission whose details will stay classified for decades, and you'll attend the funeral without being able to explain to the family what actually happened. Level 10, the General. You command U.S. Army Special Operations Command itself, or a component within it, one of the most selective flag officer pipelines in the entire military. Fewer people hold this position at any given time than there are Green Berets qualified in a single graduating Q-course class. You sit in rooms at the Pentagon and testify before committees who cannot be told what your formations actually did last month. And you learn to answer honestly in ways that satisfy the question without answering it at all. You've watched operators you selected personally, decades ago, rise, retire, or not come home at all. You carry all 3 outcomes with you at once. One day, there's a quiet ceremony, quieter than most, because so much of what you did can never be spoken aloud in front of the crowd that gathers. You salute for the last time. The classified world that swallowed 30 years of your life closes behind you, and you walk into a civilian world that has no idea what questions to ask you, or what you'd be allowed to answer if they did. Somewhere right now, a 22-year-old is standing in formation at Fort Liberty, volunteering for an assessment that will break most of the people standing beside him. He doesn't know the odds. He's already decided anyway, the same way every candidate before him decided, certain in the way only people who haven't been tested yet can afford to be. He'll ruck into the dark at Camp McCall before sunrise, and cadre with clipboards will start writing down exactly how he fails. He has no idea what the next 3, or 20, or 30 years will cost him, or turn him into, or how many versions of himself he'll have to bury along the way to find out. He'll find out, if he makes it. Most don't.